Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sharp, St. Andrews class of '68, and welcome to the Rocks and Razorbacks podcast. Here, we feature conversations with remarkable alumni, teachers, and administrators from both Middleton and St. Andrews high schools. This is a great way to share meaningful stories and keep our memories alive of growing up in West Ashley. Today's episode is hosted by Tim Fennell, Middleton class of '79. Tim and Middleton's Neal Kinard, '86, got to talk with longtime Middleton coach Rusty Davis recently at his home in Ravenel. Tim and Neal go way back with Coach Davis, Tim on the baseball field for one season and Neal in the classroom.
Tell us about how you got started in your teaching. I know you grew up in Orangeburg County, you mentioned, and next thing you know, you're at Newberry, and tell us about what interested you in teaching and then later coaching.
Well, the interest that I had in coaching was pretty much lifelong. I really and truly did not know what I would do. I went to college not saying that there's a certain major or whatever that I'm leaning toward, but I knew that from playing athletics so much in high school that after college I wanted to go into coaching. And if you go into coaching, you pretty much got to go into the educational part of it also. So,
were you inspired by anybody when you were either a youth or in high school? Or?
I always looked up to my football, all of the coaches. They inspired me, I think, by just the dedication that they had for the job and for the grit, because I had tough coaches, and I can remember that well.
So how did you find yourself going to Middleton High?
As I was finishing up my senior year, there was a position at Newberry High School for me if I wanted it. And I was planning on going to Newberry High School to become an assistant football coach. But all of a sudden, I got a phone call from down here, and it was Jerry Waters, and told me that he wanted me to come down, and they were looking at me as a possible assistant coach on the new staff, because we had a staff change right in there also. I don't think you were at Middleton at that time, but anyway, the staff change was something that kind of precipitated me coming down here and start my coaching career as it was, at Newberry.
What made you consider it and then take the position?
Well, to be honest with you, I like to be truthful when I say something. And I had kind of told the guy, yeah, I'll come to Newberry. But then with my wife being from down here in Charleston, being a Middleton High School graduate and so forth, I said that should be a good situation for me to move into. And, I'd never coached baseball before. I played baseball in high school, but I was stronger knowledge-wise in football, to be honest with you. So I probably will always owe Charleston County 1 year's baseball supplement. We won the conference championship, but it was not won because of Rusty Davis. It was won because we had great players, good pitching, and they kind of carried the old weak sister here through that first season.
Looking at the two schools, Middleton and St. Andrews, more than ever, thanks to this project, it looks like Middleton had like some real young coaches. Did you find that to be the case? Like, you're going there and there's not a lot of elderly statesman type coaches at Middleton.
No, well, at the time, Jim Worden had not been the head coach long at all, maybe a year or whatever. So he was relatively new to that situation. Jerry Waters coached football also in addition to basketball. Bob Olson, who you said you've spoken to a number of times, I think he came in from Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, and came down here and got a job. And then there was me and a guy named Chuck Koswari. I don't know, nobody remembers him, but anyway, it was a young staff, and we all had some a good bit of football experience. So that all added up. I coached junior varsity the first 2 years I was there, and then moved up to the varsity and stayed there till I left Middleton.
Do you think there was an advantage to you guys being about the same age and the school being so brand new practically?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've been on another staff where they were younger than me, and some of them a little bit older than me. And if you got the right makeup, you're gonna be okay. You don't necessarily have to hire the most experienced coaches. I know I was not hired because of my experience. I was hired because I had played football and they were looking for a football coach.
What was the recipe for success for the young coaches at Middleton?
Well, kind of going through a tutorial stage, because you come in under a head coach. You don't know at first what you're going to run on offense, what kind of scheme you're using to coach offense. And until I learned that, and then of course teaching that on the JV so it would be the same when they moved up to the varsity, is what we were looking for. But youth has its advantages out there. When 2-a-days in August, that's no picnic by any stretch. But we had a representative staff, I believe, and it was not that much. Worden was maybe 3 years older than me or something like that. So, we all kind of related to each other in that regard. I think everybody except Olston was married at the time. And so, we all had some common ground there.
What was it like being there under Jerry Waters, who was, a pretty legendary basketball coach?
Oh, yeah. He was an intense human being. And if it was ping pong, if it was basketball, if it was whatever, there was no substitute for winning. And that's the way he was. And the other thing about Jerry in particular is, you got coaches that are pretty good game coaches, but then you've got coaches who are very good practice coaches. Jerry Waters was a mix of both of them. His practices were tough.
Were there any techniques that you borrowed from him? He was maybe a little older than you, a little more had under his belt.
Yeah, well, the intensity is something that, during the games, I think intensity filters down into your players. I really do. And that'd probably be the one thing that I could say right there.
The alumni seem to think Middleton was a pretty special place. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I'd get your take on why is that? Why do you think the alumni to this day, and I think, a lot of the teachers, administrators that I've talked with the last few months think it's a special place. Why do you think Middleton has a legacy of being a special place?
Well, a couple things that come to mind when you ask about why is it so special. Number one, I just believe that if you don't have the right leadership, you're going to fail. And I'm not talking about from the district down or the school board, which, some people would rail against those entities right there themselves. But, if you're going to put out results, you got to have great leadership. And I had the opportunity to work under several really good principals. And then the other thing that I was thinking about, oh goodness.
That's okay.
Just the people that are working there, how much they buy into what that leader is doing, what that administrator is doing. Does he treat them well? Or is he going to back you up when you get challenged by a student or something like that? And as far as I'm concerned, the principals that I work for, I could count on them. If I had a beef, if I had something going on, I could go in their office, all of except one, and we won't talk about that.
Tell me because this will be a universal question for so many folks, your impression of racial relations at school.
Well, at my age, we didn't attend with the black kids for quite a while. But all of a sudden, my junior year or senior year in high school, some kids came in, some black kids from the community came in. We had no trouble. We had no trouble whatsoever. And my next door neighbor is, I won't say his name, he went to Middleton. And he told me that when he was that first group that went into Middleton, he said that he got in a fight every day and racially motivated. But now he says some of those same people that he was fighting with, he said they're the most cordial and nice to him that you can imagine. And it's just a sign of the times, I guess. But I never sensed any racial prejudice. My father told me a long time ago, treat people like you want to be treated. That's all I needed to know right there. So, great. But I don't, for the time that I was at Middleton, there were not many racially motivated things that I can imagine. No, it just was not.
Do you think that sports in general, athletics in general, sometimes is a great way to make integration easier?
Absolutely, I do. And I mean, I can't think of athletics being, well, put it this way, I can't think of athletics in any other way where you start meshing people together, and it's where maybe they remained a little bit aloof after they left practice or something like that. I don't really know about that, but I know how we treated our kids, and I know how our kids responded to the way we treated them.
Well, hey, let's talk about that special team.
If you look at that team, that 82 team, the strength was not in numbers. The strength was in a small band of players who believed in each other, and we had some good size. We had 2 big, tall defensive ends and 3 tackles and a nose tackle that were all just pretty much immovable. You weren't going to root them out. No one was going to out-physical us. At the first of the year, they almost died because all of them were playing both ways also. And but anyway, when we have practice, pretty much every day we'd run the other team's offense against our first team defense. And when you're doing that, I mean, that's just part of everybody's practices like that. But when we were going against the offense against defense, it was a free for all because they fought every day. Someone would make a tackle, and then someone would stand up and they'd start to walk away, and they'd get pushed from the back, or they'd get knocked down or clipped or something, and a fight started. And the funny thing about it, though, they fought amongst themselves, but don't ever let someone jump on one of our players because he'd have to fight our whole team. And that was the way it was. They loved each other so much that they didn't mind all the fighting and so forth. But as I say, when it took time, and when it was time to take it out on the other team, they did it. And I think I told you also that team in 14 games had 9 shutouts. So that tells you something about how good they were and how much they were excellent at playing on both ways. That's the first time. This is the first time the Heisman Trophy winner was a wide receiver and a defensive back, and you haven't had that happen before. He was a great player, but it was a lot of fun coaching those kids. They were just a great experience.
What was that day like that they won the championship? What do you remember from that day?
Well, I take it back a couple of days before. We made a trip up to Columbia, and allowed the kids to practice on artificial turf, and it was a great trip. And I feel like we got acclimated pretty well in that time. But then when it came time to go up to Columbia, we were all in the dressing room, and as you can imagine, we were so tight, we were so nervous, and just it was crazy. I was about to die. I thought I was going to have a heart attack or whatever. But all of a sudden, someone comes to Worden and says, so-and-so forgot his helmet. State championship game, forgets his helmet. And he said that anyway, he said, well, he just can't dress then. So he didn't dress. So we were all sitting there and everybody's quiet. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. And all of a sudden, the kid that forgot his helmet, he stood up and he started walking toward the door. And word and hollering, he said, where in the H are you going? He said, I'm going to get a hot dog. He said, you sit your tail down, like that. And really and truly, to be honest with you, it kind of broke the ice. It kind of took some of the tense feeling away. But we had never played for a state championship before. So that was climbing the mountaintop right there. This is the only time this year we were scored on first. And you can imagine how shocked we were because, like I say, we had 9 shutouts, and this team walks the ball down the field on us against their defense, which that just had not happened all season long. But one of our kids, and it was not intentional or whatever, but one of our linebackers, I can remember, he hit the quarterback from the other team, and it put him out of the game. Now, that may have been the difference in the game right there. But anyway, when you start looking at the score, which I think was 9-6, if I'm not mistaken, it was not a whole lot of offense, but it was a whole lot of defense. And both teams were pretty stout. This kid that plays tailback for us, number 34, Curtis Alston, he just he had no quit in him whatsoever. I mean, just tough as he could be and breaking tackles. He had a good blend of speed and power, and well, you saw him on the video here. He took off and we tackled him, and everybody would think we'd give him a rest after he'd run the length of the field on that play. But we called the right play. We gave him the ball again, and he ran it in for the score.
Last game of the season against Somerville, because we'd never beaten Somerville before.
Oh, we were victims of the McKissick, magic or whatever. And we had not beaten him. We had times that we, should have beaten them probably. But that game, and you can always tell when it gets down to the end like that and the game's that tight, we ended up giving them a safety. It gave them a safety because we did not want, they had great return teams. Their special teams were very good. But we ended up giving them a safety, which is why the score was 6-2.
Oh, that's great.
What about any truth in McKissick saying that if we beat them, they could plant corn in the end zone?
I don't have knowledge of that. I've heard it. I've heard so many things about McKissick that but that easily could have been said. But I don't know. I'm not privy to that.
Well, I do know evidently some seniors from Middleton planted some corn in the end zone later that night.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Don't know how long it lasted in there, but
No, it wouldn't have lasted long. Wow.
How about a quick question about if you thought there was a Middleton-St. Andrews rivalry? The documentary combines both schools. Was there any special rivalry between the two schools, which were like how far apart? What, like 3 miles maybe?
As far as the rivalry is concerned, I had a lot of respect, great respect for the coaches over there. For the most part, we all got along well. I think we had a little fisticuffs, got started one time, and I don't remember which game it was, but it's probably in that state championship year. But I can't remember. But anyway, I respected them. They were a worthy opponent. They were well coached. And, I just, when it came time to looking at the scoreboard, then I wanted it to sway in Middleton's favor, no doubt about that, but as they were as well. So,
That sounds like the St. Andrews the principal's answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, a lot of respect for Middleton, but in the end, hopefully, we're on top of the on the scoreboard. Was there any memories from you on any shenanigans, pranks going on between the two schools? I'm aware of one prank. Are you aware of any? And what would that be?
I heard something about painting the rock or something like that, but I don't know anything. Seemed like with all of the contacts I had with the kids, it seemed like someone would have spilled the beans and told me, said, yeah, I know, so-and-so went over there and they painted the rock or whatever. But, no, I can't, used to, like, some teams would bring a hog's head on a stick. And I know James Island did that one time.
Being the baseball coach, what are your favorite memories?
I've got 3 memories, and they are not my favorites. But, I always felt like we had a fairly representative group that we put on the field. I think that our players respected the game. They practiced hard. They played hard. But the thing that probably bothers me more than anything else is the fact that 3 times we made it to the lower state championship, which means that there were only 4 teams left playing. And we got beat by Camden, we got beat by South Aiken, we got beat by Somerville. And in the lower state championship, and winner there goes and plays for the state championship. And we came up short on all 3. That's the thing that sticks with me more than anything else. And also just the relationship with those kids. I mean, they'd put it on the line for you. I promise you, they would. And I enjoyed coaching, well, football and baseball for that matter. I had a lot of baseball players go on play in college. We had 2 that made it to AAA in the pros. We had 2 pitchers. We had a boy named Tim Cook. You knew Tim? And he pitched at Newberry and made it to AAA in the Brewers organization. And then Keith Silver. And Keith made it to AAA in the Giants organization, and actually was good enough that he got invited to spring training. But you know how pitchers blow their arms out, and I don't know what precipitated his arm problems or whatever, but that ended it for him. We had a lot. We had Frank Russ that went to Clemson. We had Ricky Lee that played some at Carolina and at Charleston Southern. I'd have to think Johnny Wise played some college baseball. Jeff Gaskins. What's his name?
Did Centerfoot ever make it anywhere?
Centerfoot went to Newberry. He hit 25 home runs in 2 years.
Yeah, he was my 1 year I played. Yeah. Him, Gaskins, and of course the young Robin Rogers.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, Robin played at. Trying to remember where he played, but he played junior college ball to start with, but then he moved up to another program, but I don't remember exactly where he was playing. I can remember we were batting and I had players rotating around so y'all wouldn't gather up and just have a little talk session going, but paying attention to practice. And there was a kid at second base and the ball was popped up high and he started going, I got it. And the ball came down and tipped his glove and hit him in the eye, and he fell on the ground and said, ooh, I got it. And that's stupid, but that's something that you remember.
You were in the class and you had the...
Yeah, so I took Charleston history, and you were infamous for the multiple choice test. But I remember one test we took, after I filled out the multiple choice, it spelled out Rusty Davis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so that was the answers, and it was your name. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people missed it, but it was just so, it was, you could see the names.
Very humorous, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I did some crazy things back then. I remember one girl that she was like, what do you call it when you go to a class audit? Yeah. She was like auditing the class, and she didn't want to sit in study hall, so she came and just sat in my room, and then she fell asleep over there against the trailer wall. and I took freezer tape and I taped it all around her desk, all like made lattice work. So she was like in a tent or whatever. And when the bell rings, she wakes up and the whole class is just waiting on her to wake up. And so they can laugh. And she turned about 4 shades of red.
I think it was rare for a couple to work at the same school. Did you ever hear anybody?
We were the first, from what I understand, in Charleston County to be a married couple working at the same place. And then, you got the Newtons there that are now. And there's some other ones, Johnny Miller and Teddy Miller, soccer coach. So, they were, I think we were the first. We kind of broke the ice there, and people started doing, they started hiring married couples also. She was dedicated to her job. She lived and died to get scholarship money for students, is what she lived and died for. She felt like that was her calling. And when my oldest daughter, wanted to go to Wofford, and Wofford is not cheap, she helped her to get scholarship money and made sure that students were signing up for and filling out the forms for the financial aid. What's it called? FAFSA.
So if you were watching them, okay, it's time to bulldoze old Middleton. What do you think kind of feelings would come to your mind if you were there witnessing them wrecking ball and bulldozing?
Well, to be honest with you, since they are building something back behind it, I would probably say it's about time. Do I have some good memories from there? Absolutely. But I don't necessarily dwell on them in that building. And it's just like up at North Charleston, Heinsohn Field, the athletic field up at North Charleston High School. I don't know if you've been up there recently, but the whole football field, the stadium, the bleachers and all that stuff is gone. And they have, I think it's office buildings for the county in there, if I'm not mistaken. But, me having coached on that field, that was a little bit hard for me to swallow, I guess. So, but the teaching part, I guess it was enough work that I don't necessarily want to remember it in favorable light.
Yeah, in a way, it's just as structure and as progress, and we can kind of get it. But I guess there's some alumni have these emotional ties to it. Some people have asked, they want to let me know when, I want to see that. And some people talked about, actually making a big deal out of it. Mm-hmm. Some people said, I want a tailgate when they do it.
Yeah. Well, if you walk down the hallway, you can tell. That's where my wife went to middle school. It's been around that long. And the halls are, little narrow halls and so forth. So it's absolutely built for elementary or middle school kids, not for high school kids. Yeah. But those little narrow walls turned out a lot of good products. They really did.
Thanks for watching today's episode, and be on the lookout for additional episodes. If you'd like to be a guest or even a host in the Rocks and Razorbacks podcast, please let us know. We want the podcast to be the go-to place for cherished Middleton and St. Andrews memories. Don't forget, the Rocks and Razorbacks documentary geared for South Carolina ETV is in production, and we'd love your input and help with that as well. For now, go Rocks and, go Hogs. Well, you get it. Thanks.